Hello class. Today we're going to be talking about organ transplantation and the lymphatic system. In order to understand transplantation, first we need to understand self versus non-self antigens. So, our immune system has an incredible ability to recognize our cells as self and foreign cells as non-self. Your cells have self-antigens on them, and again, your body has been trained, right? Your thymus trains those T cells not to attack self-antigens. You do not want to attack your own cells. Now, foreign cells and foreign pathogens and antigens we recognize as not self, and we form an immune response against them. Now, these distinctive self markers effectively tell our immune system to leave those cells alone. Do not destroy them. Right? If we had a cell with these self antigens, we would not produce these antibodies, for example. So, why am I telling you this? Well, if you get an organ transplant and your body recognizes those cells as being non-self, you can mount an immune response against them, and you can reject the organ. Your immune system will start to attack and kill those cells. So, organ transplants can be rejected and unsuccessful if we recognize those cells as non-self. Which is why it's so important that when you are trying to find a donor, that donor has to be a very, very close match to your own antigens. This is not a perfect system, however. If you get an organ transplant that is from someone who isn't your identical twin, you're going to have to be on immunosuppressants for the rest of your life. Now, in saying that, we are making huge strides towards effectively being able to grow organs in the lab, which I'll touch on in a second. So, there are four major types of transplants or grafts. The first is an autograft. Let's say you get severe third-degree burns on your face. Well, they're going to harvest some skin from somewhere else on your body to form a graft. Let's say you completely destroy a tendon that causes your thumb to work. They're going to harvest a tendon from somewhere else on you to fix that up. So, autografts are from the same person. Isografts are from genetically identical twins. So if you actually have an identical twin, you are in luck because they are genetically the same, and thus you will not form any reaction if you were to take one of their organs. Next is allografts. This is the same species, but not from the same genetic individual, right? This is from someone who's genetically distinct from yourself. This is usually what we think of when we think of organ transplantation. And lastly is xenografts, grafts from animals. One graft, for example, would be pig heart valves. Pig heart valves are very common to be put into people. Keep in mind, pig organs are almost identical to ours. And this actually brings me to what we are doing here in the field of organ transplantation. Because as many of you know, we actually do not have enough organs, not even close to satiate the immense amount of people that require organs. The donor lists are very long, and many people die while on those lists. So, what are we doing? Well, in a lab actually in Winnipeg, we discovered how to decellularize organs, and that means removing the cells from them and being left with what's called the extracellular matrix, the skeleton of an organ. Other researchers, some researchers in China, discovered how to turn a skin cell into a stem cell. A stem cell can become any cell in your body. Now, what we have done is we've actually taken a rat heart, decellularized it, taken skin from another rat, turned it into stem cells, put it on the heart, incubated that heart skeleton with those stem cells, grew a heart, and transplanted it back into that rat that we took the skin from. It survived. It wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but we are very close to being able to grow custom-tailored organs. And what would be the benefit of that? What would be the benefit of taking some of your skin? Let's say you're a chronic alcoholic, your liver's shot. You go to the doctor takes a skin sample and says, come back in a month, and now there's a custom-tailored organ just for you. What's the benefit of that? Well, it's going to be your own cells. There's no chance of rejection whatsoever. So this is kind of the holy grail that we're working towards. Now, we're still a ways off from that, but very likely in your lifetimes, getting an organ transplant may be super easy. Maybe going to the doctor, they take some skin, and then, don't get me wrong, we're still going to need major surgery, but maybe in a month you'll get a phone call saying, hey, your organ's ready, let's put this thing in you. Right? It could be really that easy. Immune disorders. I suffer from quite a few. Autoimmune disorders. This is where your body recognizes your own cells as being non-self and starts to attack them. Not a good time, and obviously killing your own cells is bad. One example of which would be like rheumatoid arthritis, attacks your joints. Another one would be type 1 diabetes. Now, type 1 diabetes, you actually attack those islet cells of your pancreas, and you kill off the cells that produce insulin, which would mean that you need to actually inject insulin for the rest of your life. Your body no longer makes it. Alright, allergies. I have a lot of allergies. Luckily, none of them are food related. I'm allergic to everything in the environment. We got dust, pollen, mold, super allergic to ground mold, super allergic to grass pollens, bad hay fever. Now, this is where your immune system forms an improper immune response against a harmless foreign particle. Right? We do not want our immune systems to form immune responses against every foreign antigen, because some of them are harmless to us. Right? Pollens, dust, most molds, right? So we do not want to form immune responses against them, but a lot of us do have allergies. And allergies are on the rise. We're not sure exactly why. One reason is something called the clean hypothesis, is that we've actually lived too clean of lives. We haven't exposed our immune system to enough antigens. Therefore, we're forming these improper immune responses due to overactive immune systems that haven't faced enough adversity. Now, when I have an allergic response, I effectively have histamines being released, causing that inflammatory response within my nasal passageway. And I can take antihistamines or nasal steroids. Steroids are immunosuppressants. Now for food allergies, these are the big ones: gluten, peanuts, tree nuts, celery, mustard, eggs, milk, sesame, fish, crustaceans, mollusks, soya, sulfites, and lupin. Now, for a long time, again, this is another reason why we think that allergies are so prominent in your generation, is that doctors said, don't feed your kids this stuff. Now doctors have completely changed their tune and said, introduce these things as early as humanly possible, because this will help prevent allergies moving forward. Alright, so that was the end, if you will, of the immune system. We're going to briefly talk about the lymphatic system because it does link very well with our immune system. And then we're going to be moving on to the excretory system. So our lymphatic system is effectively a system by which we sop up the extra fluids that are in your tissues. Right? Your blood vessels are leaky, you're leaking out fluids. If you didn't take those extra fluids and put them back into your blood, well, you would just keep swelling up, right? So our lymphatic system is a major player when it comes to fluid balance within your blood, within your tissues, but it's also very important for the immune system. It's made up of lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, and lymph, which is the fluid in those vessels. Now, your vessels are blind-ended tubes. They're open at both ends, and they carry lymph in one direction towards the heart. Now, lymph is made up of a fluid leaked from blood. Right? It's that extra fluid that leaks from your blood that's being soaked up by these vessels. Now, pathogens and cancer cells may spread throughout the body via the lymphatic stream. We have lymph nodes in our lymph system, and these lymph nodes are very important for your immune response. Now, here you can see we have these lymph vessels all throughout our tissues, and they do pick up all of those extra fluids. Lymphoid cells are your lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages. And we find a lot of these lymphoid cells within our lymph nodes. You can think of your lymph nodes as like little detection facilities. They have an extremely high concentration of lymphocytes and plasma cells. So as these blind-ended tubes, these lymph vessels, take fluids from all parts of your body, they get routed through these detection facilities, these lymph nodes. So we have extremely high densities of immune cells in these nodes, and that's where often infections are detected, and we get that third line of defense initiated. You can often tell that you have a cold or a flu or an infection because your lymph nodes will get swollen. Who here has ever felt up here on their neck when they've been sick or they think they're getting sick? You can actually feel the lymph nodes right here, and you'll feel that they are swollen. And you have a lot of lymph nodes around your body. Let's go back to that initial picture here. You have a bunch in your neck. Your neck here, you have technically your tonsils, adenoids. You have a bunch around your armpit area, a bunch around your groin. And again, these are specialized detection facilities that filter that lymph and detect those pathogens present within it. All right, next up is the spleen. Now, your spleen will recycle those old red blood cells, because keep in mind, we do have a huge amount of turnover every single day, right? We're making tons of red blood cells every day, and our spleen destroys those defective old red blood cells. And there's also a high density of immune cells within the spleen as well. This is kind of like your lymph node of the blood. So if we are going to detect pathogens within the blood, that's going to happen very often within the spleen. There's your spleen right there. Your thymus, we've already talked about the thymus. It is a lymphoid organ, and this is your testing grounds for those immature T cells to ensure that they do not target self-antigens. Your thymus is right there. It sits just above your heart. You have your tonsils, a very simple lymphoid organ. Mine were chronically infected all the time when I was a child. I actually had my tonsils and my adenoids removed. Adenoids are kind of lymph nodes within your nasal cavity. And their function is to gather and remove many of the pathogens entering the pharynx in food or inhaled air. So I guess, yes, I'm slightly more susceptible to airborne pathogens or foodborne pathogens. However, the chronic inflammation of my tonsils was, I couldn't live that way. So I had them removed at a very young age. So there's your pharyngeal tonsil, also known as your adenoid, and there's your palatine tonsils back there. And those are kind of on the sides of your throat. When you're sick, sometimes they might swell up and start to close your throat off. Here again is another illustration of all the lymph nodes around the body. Lots in the groin, armpit area, and kind of the neck. Here's a nicer picture. I think this is the one that you guys have in your notes, and it does illustrate all of the lymphoid vessels and organs around the body. Alright, so let's just quickly review the function of our lymphoid system here. It's involved in body fluid balance, so it sops up and takes that extra fluid from around the body and puts it back into the blood. It has a very important immune response. These lymph nodes are high density lymphocyte plasma cell areas where they can effectively filter and detect pathogens. And lastly, fat transport. Remember, back to digestion, if we remember within the villi, there's blood vessels, but there was also a lymphoid vessel called the lacteal in which we absorb our fats into. So our lymphatic system transports those fats into our blood. But remember, fats do not get absorbed directly into the blood in the small intestine. They get absorbed into the lymphatic system. So they transport fats from the small intestine and put them into blood circulation. So that is it for the immune system. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I hope I could enlighten you a little bit to how your body functions when it, has a pathogen infecting it, and hopefully this gives you some insights as to the seriousness that is COVID-19 and the importance of vaccination in your life. Have a wonderful day, everyone.